Welcome to the Encompassing Cancer podcast, brought to you by Cancer Pathways. Throughout our show, we'll dive into the socio-emotional impacts of cancer, share support resources, talk to experts in the community, and hear patient and survivor stories. Really anything that encompasses the cancer experience. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Hello there. We are continuing to make our way through May and focusing our attention on skin cancer this month. I'm excited to bring you this episode because it's a little different than our other episodes. I was actually invited to be a guest on Fred Hutch's Cancer Health Equity Now podcast to talk about one of our upcoming initiatives that will be rolling out in Spokane later this year. The Cancer Health Equity Now podcast brings in community voices to spotlight conversations about cancer-related research, cultural humility, personal stories, and community-led work that focuses on reducing health inequities in Washington state. On their show, I shared more about our work here at Cancer Pathways, what we'll be doing through our sun safety education and training project, the importance of sun safety, practical tips for sun protection, culturally inclusive approaches to skin cancer prevention, and how we're planning to use a train-the-trainer approach. Here's my conversation with Kayla Kenyon, Jessica Lopez Ramirez, and Dia Chandran, who work at the Office of Community Outreach and Engagement at Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cancer Health Equity Now, and greetings from the Office of Community Outreach and Engagement. We wanted to start off today with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the Fred Hutch UW Seattle Children's Cancer Consortium sits on the traditional and unceded lands of the Coast Salish peoples, the Duwamish, Suquamish, Stillaguamish, and Muckleshoot tribes past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself. We take the opportunity to thank the original caretakers of this land who are still here. We are the Office of Community Outreach and Engagement, and we are dedicated to achieving better outcomes for everyone.
We are our hosts today.
My name is Kayla Kenyon. I'm a community health educator for rural populations.
My name is Jessica Lopez Ramirez. I'm a community health educator located in Spokane.
And my name is Dia Chandran. I'm an intern located in Spokane.
In this podcast, we will be recognizing Melanoma and Skin Cancer Awareness Month by recognizing Cancer Pathways. For the past 23 years, Cancer Pathways has stayed true to its mission of facing cancer together by offering a far-reaching support for people in their homes, schools, workplaces, and communities. Over 80% of their revenues are spent on programs which are cost-free to those who have been touched by cancer.
Today, we have Lauren Binu, who is the Community Education Program Manager at Cancer Pathways. Lauren will be sharing about the SunSET, Sun Safety Education and Training Project today, and we're glad to have you here today, Lauren.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be on your podcast.
Let's introduce ourselves and start off with our icebreaker question. What is your favorite outdoor activity?
Ooh, that is such a good question. I feel like I have a lot of favorite outdoor activities. If I had to choose just one, I would probably say it's currently snowboarding or skiing. And okay, let's be honest, I can't just choose one. I would say snowboarding, skiing, and then probably going hiking and camping.
Is there a best place in the state that you like to go skiing or go hiking, Lauren?
So currently I am up in Skagit County, so I've been going to Mount Baker pretty regularly.
I love that place so much.
So beautiful.
Yeah, I also love skiing. It's kind of sad that the skiing season is ending, and I'm by no means very good at skiing. I think I went on my first blue run the other day and fell many times, but that's not what it's about, right? So
Exactly. It's just about getting out there and, continuing to practice. I was just had the last day of the season on Sunday, so I was pretty sad about that too.
yeah. But we're so spoiled in this state with so much great outdoor activities to do. I think in honor of it becoming spring and the weather getting nicer, one of my other favorite outdoor activities is to go kayaking. There's also a lot of really great places in the North Cascades near Mount Baker to go kayaking, like Lake Diablo. But I also like to just go to Green Lake in Seattle too. So lots of great places, and I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, that sounds really awesome. I grew up in the Seattle area too. I'm from Everett, so I've also been to Mount Baker. I really love the North Cascades National Park for hiking. There's a lot of trails out there. from like easy to moderate and like difficult. Green Lake is also a really awesome place to go to. That's where I learned how to bike growing up. But now that I live in Spokane, I really love exploring the area here too. There's a small like trail called Peaceful Valley up in the Kendall Yards area that like leads you to like a bridge where you walk over the river, which is really nice. I also really love like going hiking at Sand Point in Idaho, which is about like a 2 hour drive from here. So that's always a lot of fun.
I would say my favorite outdoor activity is running. We definitely have lots to explore in Spokane, and there's the river, so running outside is just one of my favorite things to do at the end of the day.
These are all so good.
I know we have a pretty active bunch here, don't we? I'm inspired now. I should go outside today. But yeah, thank you all for sharing what your favorite outdoor activity is. I wanted to transition into our topics for the podcast today. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit more about what Cancer Pathways does. We'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yes, absolutely. So, Cancer Pathways, we are a nonprofit that's based in Seattle that provides education, support, and community to anyone impacted by a cancer diagnosis. We always like to remind people that even though we're based in Seattle on Capitol Hill, almost all of our programming can be implemented virtually, and we have a footprint in every state. So, some of our signature programs include our Teen Cancer Risk Reduction Program, where health educators actually go into schools and classrooms to talk about ways that young people and teens can really take an active role in reducing their cancer risk. We also have a summer camp for kids called Camp Sparkle that is coming up right around the corner. We have a whole variety of different support groups that provide support at any phase of a diagnosis, a teen essay writing contest. We started tobacco cessation workshops for both teens and adults. And then our podcast, which is called Encompassing Cancer. So, Cancer Pathways is really unique in that we help people of all ages impacted at any and all phases of a diagnosis. And I've been really excited about our special initiatives projects, which I've started over the past 3 years and which I'll be telling you more about today.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. Could you tell us more about the SunSET project? What inspired this project among your team?
Absolutely. So, Terry is our Inland Northwest Community Outreach Manager who, unfortunately, due to personal reasons, was not able to join us today. What needs exist and if or how Cancer Pathways can help. So last fall, during a meeting with two Native American health educators, the need for skin cancer awareness and risk reduction education was identified. So that's really what inspired our project. SunSET actually stands for Sun Safety Education and Training. And Native and Indigenous communities and other darker skin groups are unfortunately disproportionately impacted by skin cancer and tend to also have a lower perception of risk than the general population. There was actually a study published in JAMA Dermatology, and it found that non Hispanic, American Indian, and Alaska Native populations have the second highest incidence of melanoma, and then also a rising incidence of late stage melanoma diagnoses. So, really, because of these disparities and because of that need that was highlighted by a community partner, we decided that we wanted to implement a sun safety community workshop and then also a train the trainer session to empower more individuals to practice sun safety. So through SunSET, we'll also be developing a sun safety and skin cancer awareness curriculum. And that curriculum will be presented at the community workshop and also reviewed by dermatologists as well as those community partners.
Wow, that's really awesome. It sounds like this project is going to be very important in our community. You mentioned this project is primarily addressing disparities in the Latino, Native, and Black communities with skin cancer and sun safety. And you talked a lot about incorporating cultural appropriation measures. How do you plan to do that or address that?
Yeah, so first off, I do think it's important for us to acknowledge that we are two white women who are leading this project. So, a really essential component built into our strategy is to partner with organizations and individuals who are actually from these communities. We believe that through these partnerships, we can really co create materials, utilize their guidance and expertise, and integrate culturally relevant content. We know that studies and statistics often have largely white sample sizes, which means that minority groups aren't fully included and their experiences often aren't captured in a comprehensive way. When their experiences are captured, we realize that these disparities exist, which is why it's so important for us to focus our project on this. Few examples of culturally appropriate measures would include things like storytelling in the curriculum, providing a land acknowledgement, making sure that people's voices are not just heard, but but also actively included throughout the entire process. And then it's also really important for us to dispel myths and misconceptions about how skin cancer impacts certain groups. So, another important piece to this project is we've been really intentional about collaborating with partners from the beginning of this project. That's been one of our top priorities, just to ensure that the curriculum and the workshop are as inclusive as possible. A few of these partners include the American Indian Community Center and then Latino Spokane.
Wow, that sounds incredible. What are some misconceptions about sun safety and skin cancer care? How do you plan to address these misconceptions from community members in the population focus for this project?
Oh my gosh, I feel like there are so many misconceptions I hear about sun safety and skin cancer, especially being in the Pacific Northwest. And when it comes to the group that are the primary focus of this project, there is a perception that people with darker skin are at a lower risk of skin cancer. Therefore, the thought would be that they don't have to wear sunscreen or take other sun safety measures when we absolutely know that's not the case. In fact, squamous cell carcinoma is the most common skin cancer in Black people, and Black patients have an estimated 71% 5-year melanoma survival rate compared to 94% for white people. Another noteworthy point I'd like to make when it comes to skin cancer is that it's really important to catch it early if possible. So, people of color are more likely to be diagnosed at a later stage. And a reason for this could be because melanoma in people of color often occurs in areas with little sun exposure. So, I think that that's kind of another common misconception is that just be able to see skin cancer super readily. But areas with little sun exposure include like the palms of your hands or the soles of your feet, your nail areas, and even the plantar portion of the foot. I think that these are really important to take note of because, of course, in order to catch it early, you have to know what signs to look out for. And then also, of course, access is a big issue. Having access to a dermatologist or a provider to then take a look at that potential skin cancer that you're finding. I think there's a lot of general misconceptions, like the belief that you don't have to practice sun safety when it's cloudy or if you live in the Pacific Northwest, which, like I mentioned, isn't true. So we really just want to remind people of like the 5 S's of sun safety and then include as many of those misconceptions and dispel them at the same time.
No, that's wonderful to hear about. I was learning that actually the Puget Sound area of our state has one of the highest rates of skin cancer in like the entire nation. So just proof that the cloudiness of the area still means that we can get skin cancer and sun safety exposures that should be addressed and should be taken into consideration. So it's wonderful to hear that there's projects that are working on addressing those misconceptions about sun safety. Could you tell us a little bit more about your train the trainer model for this project? I'd love to hear more.
Yes, of course. So after we build out our curriculum, which we are going to have reviewed by dermatologists and then host a community sun safety workshop, we plan to also host a workshop for health educators and leaders at these community organizations so that they can be trained on implementing our curriculum. This really gets to the core of making this project as sustainable as possible and making sure that it's able to be implemented for years to come. So we really just want to equip community health educators with the tools and a curriculum manual to continue offering these educational sessions and workshops.
So, one of the things that we on our team as community health educators experience is there's some community members that are really afraid of talking to us about cancer because they're afraid that speaking about cancer will bring it upon them and their families. And so that's another thing that we find as like a barrier to presenting education to the community in a way that they would be receptive to and on their terms. I was wondering if you have any strategies that you've implemented to help people not feel like talking about this topic would bring that upon them.
Ooh, that is such a good question and such like a valid concern because, just throughout our society, cancer is very much a scary thing to talk about, or that's kind of how it's always been talked about is either you don't talk about it or like the big C word. I think that with that, we have a lot of experience presenting our cancer risk reduction curriculum to teens. And of course, for teens, the one of the first things that we don't want to do is scare them. So we very much come from a perspective of empowering them. And the way that we do that is just, giving them the tools as opposed to just like a bunch of statistics of like, this is how cancer in general impacts people. We remind them that there are a lot of people surviving cancer, the importance of early detection, how that can, make treatment a lot easier. So we remind them of the positive aspects of taking control of their health and not delaying certain things if they're noticing anything on their body, because at the end of the day, that is what really can save you. And so I think we just try to empower as much as possible, focus on the positives, provide tangible tips and tools of things that people can really integrate into their life. When it comes to sun safety, I feel like the 5 S's: slip, slop, slap, seek, and slide. So it's like slipping on a long sleeve shirt, slapping on some sunscreen, seeking out shade. Those types of things are so tangible and people can kind of think through those on like a daily basis. So I guess my approach is really just trying to break things down in a way that makes sense. And of course, not using like scare tactics or too many statistics and things like that.
I love hearing about the 5 S's. I think that's a easier way for people to remember some of the tips that they can do for sun safety, which ironically also has a bunch of S's in those words too.
Yes.
So no, that's wonderful to hear about some of the strategies you go about. And I know that Cancer Pathways has a lot of programs that are targeting a younger population for teens and children that are
Mhm.
impacted by cancer. And I'm wondering if there's any differences in how you approach teens and younger populations with this kind of information as opposed to adults, which is admittedly usually I'm speaking with people that are a little bit older than teens. So I'm personally really curious to hear how you might like change and modify your approach with this different population target.
Quite honestly, that's something that I think we're really excited to learn throughout this process, because we do have a very robust cancer risk reduction curriculum for teens that we've been implementing for a long time now many years, and all across the nation, so not just Washington. So I am really excited to have the opportunity to be offering a skin cancer and sun safety curriculum for adult. I guess like to like not really answer your question, but I'm excited to learn and figure out different ways that we can integrate activities that are relevant for adults as opposed to teens. I'm excited for that process.
Yeah, this sounds all really good. And you were talking about train the train model and inspiring other people to do good decisions on like skin prevention, which also kind of reminded me of my own personal views of like skin safety and stuff. And I know a few minutes back we debriefed about like all of the misconceptions. And I know for me personally, as like a Latina, a lot of misconceptions of like, oh, I don't need sunscreen because I have a darker complex was very significant for me growing up.
Mhm.
And I know it's a lot like that for a lot of BIPOC communities. So I'm really glad that you are bringing that awareness to many groups. I tend to do that with my own family. I don't try to do the scare tactic, but rather it's like, oh, like I wear sunscreen every day, even if it's like snowy outside, because
Mhm.
snow reflects the sun, which also leads to UV lights on your skin type of thing. So just educating others when you can, but definitely really important to address all of those misconceptions that are out there.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Jessica. I think that little anecdote really kind of encompasses why we're excited to do this project. And I also just want to say, like, thank you to OCO for supporting Cancer Pathways and giving us the opportunity to implement this project. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and thank you for having such a wonderful project that we're excited to follow through the next year. This is totally an anecdote, but actually, the OCOA used to, at our tables, have sunscreen that we would give out to the community. And one thing I noticed with people that had darker complexions is they would always ask me if that skin product had like a white cast on it. And so
Mm.
when we think about barriers to skin safety, there is the parts where some people think that darker complexions don't experience the UV damage the same way that lighter complexions do. But there's also that barrier with the product itself showing up differently on different skin tones in a way that people might not like, in a way that changes what
Mhm.
their skin looks like in a way that they don't prefer. I've been learning a lot about how barriers to health also is not just convenience, not just education, but also like how inclusive are the products that there are in the
Mhm.
community, to making them really feel like they're included in that product's design. Because I wouldn't feel it was these products were created for me if they gave me this weird white cast on my skin that I wouldn't prefer being there. So barriers, they come in all different shapes and sizes and different avenues than sometimes we think about.
Yes, that is such a wonderful point, Kayla. Like, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that's something that, as part of our workshop, we want to provide what we call like care kits. So, providing like a full size sunscreen bottle as opposed to just like a sample size. So, that's going to be something really important for us to capture, is, or just be intentional about, is like the type of sunscreen that we're providing to people. Because some of them, of course, are the barriers, like the zinc oxide, I want to say. And I feel like those barrier sunscreens typically provide provide more of like a white cast on the skin, but I do think that there are so many products like always coming on the market, and hopefully they're, like you said, people are a part of their feedback is heard when it comes to designing and creating these products. So hopefully we can get more products on the market that are designed with different communities in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Like, this is the essence of why representation matters, and not just the projects that we develop, but also the design behind those projects and
Mhm.
the products that are created as a result of that. So I'm really excited for projects like yours that are being really intentional about how they're approaching community members.
Yeah, we were talking about sunscreen and we were talking about how different products cater for different population, and I guess this goes back to the misconception of sometimes sunscreen has different SPFs and darker skins need this number or this certain population needs this number of SPF, and it ultimately gets really confusing for a lot of community members. Do you have anything to say about that or like any knowledge on SPF products?
I think that's such a good question. I think just in like the health wellness industry, not to say that Cancer Pathways is a part of that industry, but it just can get so convoluted and confusing when there are so many products on the market. It's of course helpful to a degree if there are a variety of products so people have choices, but then it can also create confusion. So we totally get that. And what we typically say is you want at least 30 SPF. You really don't want to go below 30, but you want at least 30. If you go up, it's definitely not going to hurt you. But I think the important piece here is to be mindful of like how often you're applying and then how much you're using. So it's those little pieces as well. So at least 30 SPF and then applying at least every 2 hours to protect your skin from those UV rays. If you're going to be in like direct sunlight pretty consistently throughout the day, like the sun is just like shining on your skin, I would maybe be applying a little bit more often than 2 hours, being mindful if you're swimming or if you're sweating a lot, then that sunscreen is eventually going to kind of rinse off or wash off a little bit quicker. So that's what's so tricky too about this. It's situation and variable dependent. But I think if you just stick with keeping in mind of like, okay, I want a 30 SPF, I need to apply at least every 2 hours, being mindful if I'm swimming or sweating, and also integrating, other sun safety measures. So if I don't want to like constantly be worrying about having to reapply sunscreen, maybe I'll throw on a hat. I'll put a bucket hat in my bag and make sure I have my sunglasses or a long sleeve shirt that I can just like throw on if I feel like I've been exposed to the sun for too long. So just different things like that.
Those are good advices and often really easy to remember, but also like it's easy to forget at times. So thank you for the reminder on like those things that we can do to prevent and take care of ourselves with sun safety.
So easy to forget these things. So I think that's what's so important is having a workshop, like a community workshop where people can be like equipped and provided with the tools and then in some ways be reminded and try to integrate it into their lifestyle. So for me, I always just apply a sunscreen or I just get a moisturizer that has SPF in it so that I know my face every single day has like sun safety. But it takes me a lot, to remember to integrate that into my routine. So we're all human at the end of the day. And I think that that's also important to keep in mind.
How do you hope people are impacted by this project and what do you want people to know and do for skin safety?
Yeah, so our goals really are, of course, to increase awareness about the importance of sun safety and skin cancer risk in BIPOC communities. We really want to emphasize that skin cancer can show up differently, like I mentioned, in BIPOC group, the importance of self exams, bringing concerns up to a healthcare professional, being mindful of some people are hesitant about talking about cancer or nervous about cancer, and that's like a very real and valid concern. And then also how to integrate other sun safety measures into your life. So I was mentioning like the 5 S's of sun safety. Another big goal for us is for community health workers to really take the curriculum, the materials that we develop, and the training and use it in their continued educational outreach. We really want this project to be as sustainable as possible and used into the future. And then, like I said before, something that I'm personally really excited about is just to have the capacity to build out a sun safety and skin cancer curriculum for adult. I mentioned, that we provide this curriculum for teens, but we haven't really had the capacity to really build out a curriculum for adults. So I'm really excited about that.
I'm curious to hear more about your excitement about a curriculum that's targeting the adult population. I'm curious to hear what are some of the differences that you're anticipating with that population change from the teens to the adults.
I think one of the key differences with like our teen program is that it's just one little component of like a 50-minute presentation. So we just get to kind of scratch the surface. And so I'm excited to go a little bit deeper, building out a series of modules, integrating, like I said, like storytelling and hearing people's like personal anecdotes of their experience with skin cancer or detecting it. Even maybe, having a module where it's like, these not to scare people by showing pictures, but to show people pictures of like, this is what potential, melanoma could look like on your foot or on the palm of your hand, as opposed to just kind of like looking at moles. And so I think that we can just go more in detail when it comes to like showing pictures, utilizing storytelling, and just integrating other components to it.
I love that. And I think that with the adult population, they'll be able to like explore those deeper concepts within like the skin safety, skin cancer realm. And I'm really excited to see how those presentations go with showing what like skin cancer might look like on different parts of their body and different parts of their skin. Now that
Mhm.
I'm thinking about it too, there's this whole thing that I remember reading about medical schools is that a lot of the diagrams are done on white skin and
Mhm.
lighter complexions. So I think that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen in like a medical book what a sunburn looks like on darker complexions. And it probably is very different and something that there's more people that aren't as aware of what a sunburn might look like, depending on what your skin tone is, which could be a big barrier to people understanding their own risk of skin cancer and sun safety. So I'm so excited to see how skin cancer and sun safety might look like on different complexions.
Absolutely. I think that that is such an opportunity that we have to really show how skin cancer can show up differently because I think back to the slide that we show in our cancer risk reduction for teens, and we show the difference between like what a normal mole could look like and then what a potential melanoma could look like. In the normal mole, the background is just like a lighter complexion, lighter skinned person. And exactly what we're talking about today. It's like that can look very different if somebody has a darker tone or darker skin. And it's really important to capture.
Right. I'm curious, Lauren, if there's any other parts of this project that you're really excited about that we haven't really touched on today.
Something that we are excited about is just continuing to intentionally expand into the Spokane and inland Northwest area. Terry has done such a phenomenal job building out partnerships, showing up for their events. I know like the Boulevard Run was one recently that she partnered with and showed up for. And so she's just been so intentional about creating partnerships out in Spokane. And, we've done our cancer risk reduction for teens in Spokane. We have our Camp Sparkle in Spokane. And so I think that's what I'm excited about is intentionally expanding our services.
I think that's great. And I'm so excited to see how Cancer Pathways is expanding their outreach intentionally with communities that are underserved with cancer care or sun safety. And I'm really curious how people can reach out to you to get more involved or partner with Cancer Pathways, possibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will say if you are listening to this podcast and you would like to get more involved in our SunSET project, please reach out to Terry, Terri, at cancerpathways.org. We'll be updating our website. We're just in the very initial phases of this project. So if you go to our website, there won't necessarily be too much information on there about it, but everything else I've mentioned is up on our website. But you can email Terry. You can visit our website at www.cancerpathways.org. And yeah, we're excited to get started.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to get started too. I think this project's the start of a really fruitful and productive program with expanding education on skin cancer and safety, intentionally incorporating populations that have been left out of that discussion. So, this is a wonderful project that's doing a great job of building those gaps that our team is seeing in cancer care as well. So, let's continue this discussion. Definitely encourage our listeners to reach out to Cancer Pathways if they're at all interested in the SunSET project, either in collaborating or just learning more about how they're doing this project and their outreach.
Absolutely. Like, please reach out to us. I always like to remind people we have, like I mentioned in the intro, just a variety of support group for any phase of like a cancer diagnosis. You are a caregiver, you're a survivor, if you're just newly diagnosed. We even have this new comedy and cancer support group, which I know sounds like how do those two things go together? But Cancer Pathways was really created and started as Gilda's Club originally. And so, Gilda Radner was on SNL, and she really used comedy and laughter to get through her cancer experience. So we have an excellent facilitator who's doing a support group that kind of integrates laughter and comedy into getting through a really challenging time. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't plug our podcast, Encompassing Cancer. We release episodes every other Monday and cover a whole variety of different topics, so 2 episodes per month. And that's been a really excellent way to just get information and resources out to the community.
That's amazing. It sounds like the comedy and cancer and also having the podcast, it looks like you're building community in different ways, both with spotlighting community partners that you're working with, different projects that you're doing at Cancer Pathways, but also bringing a little bit of joy into the lives of people that are impacted by cancer, which can be really tough. And I'm sure that having a space to find joy and not lose that as part of their life is probably really welcome. I'm thinking about how cancer care, it makes people sometimes have to ponder their mortality and be intentional with their life. And sometimes that incorporates also just wanting to spend their time with more joy and more fun. So I think it's amazing. And I didn't know that it was started by someone that was on SNL. That's wonderful.
Yes. It's so cool. No, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I appreciate like the kind words, just about the work that we're doing. And it is really unique. So the facilitator of that comedy support group, I wish I was remembering the name. I'm like kicking myself that I'm not remembering the specific name of the support group because it's just a newer one that we have. But he was actually a writer for SNL in New York. So that's also a fun little piece of information.
That's so cool. The talks about cancer are human at the end of the day, and laughter is human. So
Hmm.
I think it's great to incorporate those different ways that we can go about making people's lives more joyous and impact their well-being in a good way. So that's so cool.
Absolutely.
I never thought that this podcast would include a talk about SNL, but here we are. This is
Right?
awesome.
You never know the directions we'll go in.
Exactly. But that's the wonderful thing about opening up conversations like this.
Just podcasting in general. I know I'm biased, but that's the fun of it is you can just incorporate so many different components because cancer is just a part of life and it
Mhm.
happens and gotta just roll with it and incorporate as many fun elements as possible too.
Exactly, exactly. And I know that you work in like community education like Jessica and I, and a big part of that is just that I find joy in is like really seeing what matters to community members because I know sort of what my North Stars are and what drives me to make my life feel more authentic and true to myself. But that doesn't mean that that's the case for everyone. And it's really lovely to hear from other people what really matters to them because cancer care, it should be based off of what each individual really wants to get out of their life because it's going to look different for everyone. So these conversations for me are just always so enlightening, and they're a huge part of what I try to bring into my education and my approach to community.
I love that. I guess, yeah, just to like piggyback on what you're saying is that's one thing I always try to kind of leave people with too is like, even if you're not directly impacted by cancer, like a patient or a survivor, there's always something that you can do if you're like passionate about helping out. I always think of like donating blood. Is such
Mhm.
an important way that you can help cancer survivors and patients, or even, we're doing an episode here soon about NMDP, so formerly Be the Match. That's like an excellent way that people can get involved and, potentially help somebody who's going through a difficult experience. I always just think of those like little wins along the way and ways that people can get involved.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we have programs like that at Fred Hutch where we try to find blood matches as well for people that are going through treatment for either like leukemia or lymphoma. So
Hmm.
these programs, it's one of the ways we can really build our community together and show that, we're in it all together and no one's quite truly alone in going through their cancer experience. So yeah, I love talking to people that also know are driven by the same kind of mission that I think our
Hmm.
team is centered around too. So that's lovely.
Absolutely.
Is there any other last thoughts for this podcast that you have, Lauren, that we haven't really talked about today?
Just one final note since this project is based in Spokane in the Inland Northwest. If you are a family living in the Inland Northwest and are a parent going through a cancer diagnosis, or if you have a child going through cancer, we do have Camp Sparkle Spokane this summer, June 24th through the 28th at Manitou Park. And so that is just it's a day camp. So it's a great opportunity for kids to just meet other kids who are going through a similar experience and then find support. So I guess that's kind of the last thing that I would want to plug is our Camp Sparkle in Spokane.
For sure. Thanks for plugging Camp Sparkle, and we'll be sure to include that in the description with the podcast so everyone can go check it out if they're interested. We learned so much today, Lauren. I learned not just about the SunSET project, but Camp Sparkle and SNL. We covered so much today.
Well, can I just say I learned so much from you guys too. I really, really appreciate the opportunity, and just you had a lot of good questions and pieces of information that I'm sure I'm going to integrate into our project.
Yeah, awesome. And let's keep this conversation going. I think we have so much to talk about, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Lauren. If people wanted to learn more about you and your work, they can reach you and Terry at which email would be best for that?
Yeah, so they can always reach out to info@cancerpathways.org or our personal emails, which is just our first name at cancerpathways.org. So Lauren, Lauren, @cancerpathways.org, or Terry, Terri, and then www.cancerpathways.org is our website.
I love that your email titles are so easy to type into the email inbox part.
So
That's
easy, but it
awesome.
just sounded like a mouthful, I feel like.
It always does that after the
I
at,
know.
you know.
Yes.
But we learned so much from you today, Lauren, and we so much appreciate all the information that we learned today. We wanted to thank our audience and everyone joining us here at Cancer Health Equity Now, and we are looking forward to our next episode.
Yeah, we've been your host. I'm Jessica.
I'm Dia.
And I'm Kayla.
From all of us here at the OCOE, thank you.
Thank you to the Cancer Health Equity Now podcast for inviting us on your show and for allowing us to share with our listeners as well. I would encourage you to check out their show. And of course, if you would like to tune in to our other skin cancer related episodes, we have episode number 4 and episode number 29 released in May 2022 and 2023, and our most recent episode that came out 2 weeks ago. In those episodes, I go into detail on how to do a skin self-exam, how to practice sun safety, and how to reduce your risk of melanoma. Those episodes, along with other helpful resources, will be linked in the episode description. If you've been enjoying listening to the podcast, please don't forget to leave us a rating and review and share this episode with a friend. Until next time, please stay healthy and well.